This is the Pipkin and Turnbull Show. Welcome, everybody, to episode number 1. And we're really excited. My co host, Jamie Turnbull. What's happening, man?
Oh, not much, man.
So,
Gotta get this going.
So, hopefully, this is our first stream. So, we're just making sure everything's running well. So, please leave us some comments. Just saying if something's wrong with your audio, visual, or something like that. So just let us know what's going on. And so, Jamie and I, Mr. Turnbull, we started actually at college at Evangel, and we did a show called High Voltage. And so I was in college, and so really just needed somebody to help me with the show. And I would go in after I worked, so it was from 9 till about midnight that we would do a show called High Voltage. And so that's where kind of our love to just talk, we talked about movies and sports and kind of all different kind of things. And so we just really enjoyed doing that, and I've always talked about just doing it once again. And so yeah, Jamie, go ahead and introduce yourself, brother.
All right, I'm Jamie. Me and Caleb have been friends since 8th grade, and like you said, we started doing this when Caleb was at Evangel. We tried it back when a little earlier than that, tried doing just a podcast there, and but Caleb approached me a couple weeks ago asking me if I'd like to do this again, and heck yeah. So I can start the show rundown. We're gonna talk about Antonio Brown's future in the NFL. We're going to go over our NFL power rankings today. And then we're going to switch it over to the NBA on Kawhi Leonard. Is he the future of the NBA? And then we're going to talk about the NCAA, competition, playoffs, and then the big topic right now, paying the players. And then Caleb and I will discuss our top 5 wide receivers to close out the show.
That is the first edition of Pipkin vs. Turnbull. So what we're hoping is on Facebook, we got our Twitter going, and so we're going to be posting the pictures of our 5 wide receivers. I want you guys going out and voting for like who you're on, which team are you on. It's kind of like the whole Civil War thing that we got going. that whole are you Team Cap or Team Iron Man going on?
There you go.
So yeah, let's get into it, man. So AB's meltdown, and so I myself am a big Steelers fan, as you can tell. My Mr. Turnbull is a big old Chiefs fan, proud of it. I decided to represent my Western Conference champions Blues tonight, and their hockey's back and going, man. And so representing the team, representing the Stanley Cup champions. And but we're going back to AB. It's crazy, and I pulled this up. Here's a timeline if people aren't aware of what. So Antonio Brown, superstar at Pittsburgh, wide receiver there, game changer really. Here is kind of the timeline of events. I know a lot of people who are going to watch this probably already know what is going on with AB, but here's kind of the rundown of it. We had a civil lawsuit filed on September 10th. It was accusing Antonio Brown of some sexual things going on with his fitness trainer. The suit lasted for a while, and back in March, Pittsburgh finally decided to trade Antonio Brown to the Steelers. And so
Raiders.
To the, what did I say?
Steelers.
Steelers to the Steelers. Steelers to the Raiders. That's how the first show is going to go. So we're going to look back and be like, we knew what we're doing. We know exactly what we're doing. We're not messing this up.
No.
So Brown has the cryotherapy mishap where he freezes his feet off because he forgot to wear socks. Yeah, that happened. He didn't like the helmet he was wearing. request for the release. I think in that timeline he also like took a picture of, I think it was a fine, right, Jamie? He had a fine, and he took a picture of it and he posts it to where Instagram, and and so so that happened. So he gets released. So whatever he did, he got released, and so Brown goes to New England Patriots. The thing with the sexual the abuses and things like that come out public. The Patriots end up then releasing him. So the Patriots got him. Now he's released, and now Antonio Brown is officially a free agent. So
and he's suing both the he's suing the Raiders and the Patriots for like a combined like $90 million, $90 to $60 million for all the guaranteed money that he thinks he's owed.
Well, so he's got to make his money somehow by blowing, what was it? I think he blew like $75,000 in a day or something.
Yeah.
But I mean, Shaq, I heard the story of Shaq where he blew $1 million after he gets signed. He went after Orlando, he gets signed, and he just blew $1 million in one day. So
man,
it's crazy, man. But let's think Antonio Brown. Legitimately, whatever you think, or even I myself being a Steelers fan, not proud of nothing about Antonio Brown am I liking, but you can't deny how great he was. I mean, you talk about a wide receiver with amazing footwork, great hands, and great route running. And that's what I think when you look at the Steelers offense right now, they're trying to find that. Juju is another type of style. I think he can get there, but right now you can just tell the burst off the line, the initial footwork. It's kind of the difference between Juju and Antonio Brown. And so whatever you do or don't like about AB, it just shows you something to, within 1 week, go and make 5 catches with the Patriots and then score a touchdown. Is how great he is, of just that initial burst and everything that he was all about. And the crazy thing is, here's the crazy part, is his time at Pittsburgh. I mean, the guy was known for his work ethic. I think that's the craziest part about this whole, like, a little bit of a misunderstanding about Antonio Brown.
I mean, he came in as a 6th round draft pick. He was known to be a punt returner at Central Michigan. No one expected him to be what I think could have ended up being a Hall of Fame career. Now, to answer the question, his future in the NFL, does he have one? No, he doesn't. I think, again, in the NFL, his talent and all that aside, nobody wants that headache. And especially until these lawsuits are figured out, there's nobody that's going to want the headache. And now that he's suing 2 programs or 2 franchises for, money he thinks he's owed, he's entitled. He thinks he's owed that when he didn't do anything to, being a part of those franchises, earn it. And so, I have in my notes here, he had 11,263 yards, 75 touchdowns. And he was he's been in the league 9 years, I think. 8 or 9.
I mean, he already ranks, just to put that in perspective, ranks 28th in all-time receptions and 34th in receiving yards. With I would say a limited amount of time playing, because he has had at least another 4 years. And that's prime Antonio Brown. Now, after the cryotherapy, we don't know where, his speed or anything like that would be. So that would be the only thing we would, that you would ever look at. And I do agree. I think he had an opportunity there to come back into the league, but with these lawsuits against the other teams will not touch him. I mean, that's the reason Antonio Brown won't have a job, is because of his actions. I mean, his own
Mm-hmm.
choices. I mean, unfortunately, I don't necessarily agree with it. The NFL would have overlooked everything else, even
Mm-hmm.
with all the cases and everything like that. Everything would have been looked over except these lawsuits against the other teams. I think that's
Yeah.
where he's gotten himself in a bind. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if it's impossible to say that Antonio Brown will never be back. But there is that. The only places I see him playing is like just stop. We're gonna end up seeing him on the XFL.
Yeah.
That's where he's
I
gonna
could tell.
belong, man. I'm telling
He's
you.
gonna be the next player that has "You hate me" on the back of his jersey.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and the sad thing is, I do like some of his actions. I mean, there's something mental. I mean, some mental things
Yeah.
that he's got to. I'm not sure. The who's that? So he's getting some bad advice somewhere in his life, and so.
I
But
think it all went downhill once he took that Burfict hit a couple years
maybe,
ago.
yeah,
I mean, I think that knocked something loose, and he just hasn't been the same since.
yeah. I mean, the hard thing is, like we've just spent the first couple minutes, is you can't deny how great Antonio Brown is.
Mm-mm.
I mean, when you
Mm-mm.
watch the tape, you watch the things that he did. Like I said, the footwork in itself is really what shines
Mm-hmm.
through. Being able to get that separation, he never, his size wasn't great, but he always found a way. Like the guy
Yeah.
always he would find a way to get through double coverages, all these things,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what's crazy. And
Mm-hmm.
he's in the prime. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the tough thing about Antonio Brown.
Yeah, like I
So
said, he had a Hall of Fame talent, and he just, something went wrong along the way.
yeah, and I think we're both on the same page with AB.
Mm-hmm.
I sent you messages. I think we were just laughing the whole time because it happened to the Raiders and then it happens to New England, which we aren't a very big fan of on this show.
Never.
The Raiders of New England, you're gonna have some hard time getting some credit, but
Oh yeah.
yeah, except for New England, you gotta give them. Sheesh, only allowing 2 touchdowns so far in the season's wild.
They
It's
haven't
wild.
played the Chiefs yet.
Yeah, or the Colts. Is it too early?
Uh,
Is it too early?
Yes, it's too early. I'm not over it yet.
That's right. All right, so now we're gonna look up some NFL power rankings. Some very interesting movements going on. My thing is, I want to get into so the 49ers this week moved up to, and I'll try to see if I can find where they moved from last week. So tell me about your feelings on the 49ers. All right. I think we lost Jamie for right now. We'll try to get this figured out. Yeah, and so what I was asking Jamie is, we're checking out as we're looking at the power rankings, what is going on? What are these 49ers all about? Are they legitimate, or is it just based on kind of the schedule that they are currently in? And so right now I'm trying to get back my friend Jamie and see if he's getting our internet back up and going. My thing with the 49ers, if you think about the teams that they have played so far, we have always been kind of looking through, kind of trying to figure out where the Browns are going to be. So I don't know if that win over the Browns was especially that great of a win. And I think I got Jamie back. Jamie, you back with me? I lost him for a second, so we got stuff going on this end, man.
Yeah, we're trying to figure stuff out. It's episode 1.
It's episode 1. So what are your feelings on the 49ers?
I have them at number 5 on my power ranking. Because yeah, the people they've beaten hasn't been like all-star talent, but they're doing it, and they're doing it very convincingly. And their star players are showing up. You know, Garoppolo, he's doing great as a quarterback, and I feel like he got. But I feel like the 49ers would have been a top team last year if he wouldn't have got hurt. And so, like, I was watching the Monday night game last night, and not only did they beat in my opinion, a overhyped Browns team, they dominated an overhyped Browns team. And so I've got them in my top 5 because they're 5-0, and they're in a strong division. And it's going to be interesting when they play Seattle or the Rams, and that's when they'll move up, because I think they can beat both those teams. So, I mean,
Yeah,
I really like the Browns, or San Fran.
Yeah, I mean, so basically who they've been, I'm trying to see their schedule so far. Do you have anything on who they've played so far? I know
They've
that
played Cincinnati.
yeah, it was their first game. And then
Mm-hmm.
my biggest thing, I think part of the teams that they have beaten is a weak, super terrible AFC North teams. Going into the season, there was talks of the AFC North getting 3 teams into the playoffs, and they're it's going to be a race to the finish. I mean, because legitimately, each team in the AFC North, with their losing records, have a chance to get into the wild card still.
Yeah.
Most likely it's Baltimore, but the North has just been pitiful, I think, honestly, so far. And I'm kind of like with you. I'm gonna be more bought after I see this Rams game. This Rams is gonna tell a lot about this 49ers. And here's the deal: Seattle is legitimate, and I think a lot of people are looking at them too. Russell Wilson, the dude is MVP so far. I mean, the numbers he's been putting up. The Seahawks have been quietly winning this entire time. So I mean, for me, I would put them ahead of the 49ers just based on their schedule and the teams that they have beaten. Unfortunately for these NFC West teams, all of them have to go up against these weak AFC North teams, and that's what's kind of happening earlier in the season. So we don't know really until they get into their own division, because I wouldn't say the NFC West is the strongest division right now, but they are one of the most interesting divisions. Because at any day, the Rams or any team from the NFC West can beat you. Like, it's kind of it's really weird for us to predict them. Besides probably Arizona,
Yeah, I can't tell you who the top 3 are in the NFC West right now. I really can't.
Yeah,
I don't know who's gonna win it. Like,
right.
It's up for grabs.
Well, yeah, and so I mean, I'm not ready to crown them top 5 yet until they beat the Rams. I think for me, the Seahawks are sitting at 7 this week in the power rankings. I'm putting them more in the top 5 right now, just based on who they've played, and based on the fact that I know Russell Wilson. I know with what Pete Carroll's and the rest of that team is all about, the identity that the Seahawks are. So right now I'm still putting like I said, the 49ers Rams game is going to be huge. Another team that I'm kind of liking right now, oddly enough, is there's a lot of good things and I know that they're ranked 15th right now, but the Carolina Panthers are, I think, surprisingly good, are going to be good. with some of the wins that they have, with the way that McCaffrey is playing, that defense
Yeah.
is solid. I'm not sure how far they're going to go, but you know, I've been surprised at what they've been able to do offensively, and maybe it's because Cam's not playing without a throwing arm. You know, maybe that's why they're playing. I don't know.
I I think Kyle Allen, he's gonna, because Cam's not playing next weekend, so Kyle Allen's still gonna. And I think, man, Cam's gonna be on a different team next year. I think Kyle Allen's gonna take the job, and I think that'd be best for Carolina because Cam can't stay healthy, and that's what's been setting Carolina back for so many years now, is because Cam can't stay healthy, and I don't even have them as my underdogs. I really don't. I don't expect anything from them. I think Kyle Allen's going to play good. He's going to play well enough to keep the starting job. I don't see them. I see him maybe as an 8-8 team, but not making the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the NFC South a little bit. You've got Tampa, which is a little bit on the rise. You know, Saints are starting to put it together with Teddy Bridgewater. The Falcons, I mean, on paper, they're really good, but the football they're playing is pretty awful.
They're definitely underachieving.
Yeah, the NFC South, I mean, with kind of Drew Brees out of the mix right now, is, you know, I we'll see what Carolina does. I mean, for some odd reason, I keep watching them. I keep looking at some of the stats defensively that they're putting up. I think some of it's solid. You know, I'm kind of like what you said. Obviously, there's a lot of things too early to tell. But I want to count it. I would keep them on the lookout to see what they'll be able to keep doing. Because it's just, I think they're just an interesting team right now to look at. And, another interesting thing is the Saints are sticking at number 2. The Chiefs dropped down to 3, and this is NFL.com ranking these. You know, and looking at the Chiefs for just a second, it's still bitter. Still bitter. Obviously, a big letdown. You know, there was a lot of telling things, especially about in the trenches. You know, I kept looking at Justin Houston, and I was like, man, I get the age, I get the reasoning behind it, but man, I'd really love, if I was a Chiefs fan, sticking him and keeping him in the red, you know? I don't know. I see I still liked Justin Houston more than I did Dee Ford. You know, you look at Justin Houston's number, he tied the all-sack record a couple of years back. That's what I think stung a little bit. I don't know for you, but it put a little smile. I was like, man, I don't know if that was I don't know. What did you think about that?
Man, like, I get why we released him. Like, you know, it was a financial thing, and he wouldn't take, from my understanding, he wouldn't take a pay cut. And the Chiefs were trying to free up some cap to go get Tyrann Mathieu. They were trying to free up some cap to, you know, they traded Dee Ford, so to try to get somebody like Frank Clark. And Justin Houston wanted to stay. He wanted to finish his career out, but he wasn't playing up to that contract we gave him. And so, since he wouldn't take the pay cut, Chiefs saw him as expendable. So seeing Blue 99 wreak havoc last Sunday night it hurt. Like I wish he would have played like that last year, because man, I'm happy that he's still in the league. I'm happy that he's thriving in another place, even if it's the Colts. I'm happy that he's still doing his thing, and I think in a couple years he's gonna sign like a 1-day contract with Kansas City. I see it happening. I mean, it just makes sense for it to happen.
Yeah.
But man, he wrecked us last Sunday. Like, I wasn't expecting it. I thought we would handle him pretty easily, but it hurt. But I mean, if anything, he just gave the Kansas City Chiefs a wake up call, and I think we're gonna play a lot better than they played last Sunday night. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, and here's the deal. I don't know, with all the injuries, defensively, it's going to be a struggle for the rest of the year, because I don't see it with Chris Jones. I know a lot of people proclaim this about Chris Jones, but he was getting beat. I mean, he was getting straight up lifted up and beat off the line, because he was the guy I was watching. I mean, he's kind of the last hope on this Chiefs D line, and that's the way I see it. Frank Clark, to me, is underachieving. Tyrann Mathieu is a great asset, definitely worth the money that they're giving to Tyrann, the Honey Badger. But to me, those are the two biggest things when I look at this defense. Is not impressed with Chris Jones and not really impressed with what Frank Clark is doing.
Yeah. Frank Clark, I believe, has 1 sack this season. And I have a feeling he's going to explode soon. And it's hard to grade against the Colts, because the Colts, I believe, have the best offensive line in the NFL.
Crazy good. Crazy great offensive line.
Yes. I mean, of all the years for Andrew Luck to retire,
right?
He picked a bad one. But I mean, but at the same time, you want your best on best, and the Colts just proved that our front isn't the best. And I've noticed a lot, and I'm in the minority of Chiefs fans who don't believe that Chris Jones should get a contract extension, because I've noticed this year, especially in the Jaguar game week 1, he's taking plays off. Like, he's not giving his full effort. And when you're in a year that looks like it's Super Bowl or bust, you need your top defensive lineman to be going after the quarterback. Now, he's had a couple sacks and he's played good, but he's not playing the way he has in years past. And it's going to be interesting, because his injury is looking like it's going to keep him out a couple weeks. So the Chiefs are going to find out, like, okay, what is this defensive line going to look like without Chris Jones? We're going to find out in at least 2 to 3 weeks what it's going to look like. And the run stop for the Chiefs is atrocious. Like, it's actually looking worse than how it looked last year. And last year's was really bad. And so we're going to find out.
Yeah, I mean, and I there was just, it was a weird. I think I also didn't agree with most of the play calling that the Chiefs were calling. I think sometimes they just want, or maybe it's more of a Mahomes thing. I don't know, or if it's what's happening, but maybe it is more of Mahomes just trying to go big every time he's out there. But some of it is these routes are super long routes with the speedsters that they have. And I think they're trying to get that down the field, trying to stretch them out, trying to make them beat that speed. And the Colts did that. They man-to-man and beat them down the field. And I think a lot of teams are going to do that if the Chiefs keep playing like that, because eventually you're going to have to start doing these little 5-and-ins. You're going to have to make them approach the line a little bit more and then go over the top with it. Another aspect to the Chiefs game is on their side, they don't really have a running game, except for a couple of weeks. Shady and Damian Williams sometimes can get in there, but it's really not there yet. To me, when I'm watching them play, it's just it was a weird game. In that 4th down call where they're near the 50 and they have 1 yard to go and they give it to Damian Williams, and that's where Justin Houston comes around and gets the tackle. I'm just like, man, you got to put that in Mahomes' hand at that point in the game.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You put the ball in your best player's hands, and you let him make the play, because we saw that against Baltimore. Mahomes had to make that 4th and 8 play. And so to me, I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh man, they're going to run this ball and they're going to get stopped. I mean, as soon as the play is getting called, everybody knows what's going to happen in that stadium, and there's no way that the Chiefs are going to stop that. So I mean, I was hoping for their sakes that he would pull it and throw it or something, but that was a terrible call. Terrible.
Oh
call.
yeah, it sealed the game. Our rush game that game was, I think like 2.6 yards,
Right.
and on a 4th and 1, you're calling a rush. Like, you've got the reigning MVP as your quarterback.
Right.
What is he known to do? Throw the ball. What is he known to do? Be magic with the ball.
Right.
Why don't you throw the ball 4th and 1?
He's the guy who can almost complete, he completed the 4th and 8, almost completes a 3rd and he actually would have gotten that 3rd and 28 if what's his name, starts with a P. If he would have gotten to the outside. Do you remember that play? It's 3rd and 28.
Yeah.
And they
Pringle.
got Pringle. Yeah. And Pringle just has to keep going to the outside, but he cuts it up too early. But they would have completed that 28er. I mean, easily.
Yeah.
That was another where I think they had to punt it from there. But anyways, they're down, all that to say they're 3rd in the power rankings this week behind the Saints.
Yeah, that's where I got them.
Yeah. So, any other thoughts you have on the power rankings?
No. I mean, I've got the obvious number 1's New England, and then you got number 2's New Orleans. Nah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
New Orleans, I did not expect to be playing in this well without Breeze. Like, I knew Teddy was good, but like I thought they would take a step back with Teddy. Man, that team's magic.
There was a couple picks and a couple things that happened. We posted on Twitter that you had 10 and 5 and I had 6 and 9. Just I was a couple plays from getting it right. I mean, with Pittsburgh, I really thought Pittsburgh had that game, and they should have had that game.
Yes.
The Bears losing to Oakland with the last second touchdown. Just things like that, man. That just happens. But man, Pittsburgh losing that Baltimore game is huge for them. It's just down to our third. Hope Mason Rudolph recovers from that hit. That was scary.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with the Steelers is, I don't know if, it's like every week they keep getting better and better, but then it's just another injury. It's just something else that's happening to them this year because their defense with T.J. Watt and some other guys, they got Mika Fitzpatrick now, who's actually playing really well. My Alabama
from the
boy.
Chiefs.
So, hey, you guys could have gone after Jalen, right? You should have got some Jalen Ramsey going.
Man, I don't want the headache.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's what kind of happened this week. So, the next thing that we're looking at on our rundown is Kawhi the king of the NBA? And so, Jamie, I'm going to let you take this off.
No. I think he's good. I mean, he's great. But until he retires, I don't care where he's at. LeBron James is the king. It's just simple. He wins wherever he goes. Now, last year was kind of an off year with the Lakers, and I don't think anybody really expected, that he wouldn't be in the playoffs. But LeBron wins, and he's always gonna win. And I've been watching the Lakers preseason game against the Warriors, and that team is gonna win. It's gonna win. And so Kawhi, he's been great wherever he's gone. Like, he was great with the Spurs.
All right, I think we lost Jamie there for a sec. Yeah, and I'm just kind of echo what Jamie was saying. Being great with the Spurs, being great with the Raptors, and now teaming up with Mr. Paul George at LA. Um, and so, uh, one thing I would say is I do tend to agree that LeBron is still the king. And I got Jamie back. Good. Um,
Yeah.
uh, so if you want to finish that thought, you can.
I mean, it's just Kawhi's great, but he's not the king. He's gonna win. He's gonna win in LA. But he's just not the king yet. He's gonna. I want to see how he does with the Clippers before we crown him.
Yeah, and I think some of the things that's going on um, is there's this definite power shift going on in the NBA, right? And
Oh yeah.
and we talk about you talk about a team that doesn't look really good, and that's the Warriors. I mean, it was sad because you
Yes.
said the Warriors, LA. I just don't know what that Warriors team what they're gonna do, but um, with Kawhi, he's the only one. We talk about Kevin Durant, a couple of these other
Mm,
guys, Giannis, but the only reason I think Kawhi is a legitimate debate on between those two compared to the rest of the league, and when you're trying to compare guys, because defensively, um, there's no one better than Kawhi. I mean,
yeah.
that is part of his game that I don't know if anybody could challenge how well he plays on the defense. And so, these Clippers and LA, games are going to be amazing. Like,
Yeah.
definitely must see TV when those guys get together. Paul George,
Yeah.
Kawhi, when these other pieces get together. Like you said, LeBron and Anthony Davis already got this amazing chemistry going. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Davis looks amazing. I mean,
Yes.
he you know with LeBron distributing it around to him and different players.
Mm,
I mean, he may end up being the MVP, whether LeBron deserved it or not. He may just end up based on his numbers
yeah.
this year. And so
Mm,
Anthony Davis is going to start getting into that talk of the best player on the planet right now.
yeah.
But Kawhi's that brings championships, man. He's
Mm-hmm.
done it on different teams. I would say, to me, the only thing you could say is that he did it with teams that may have been less talented that LeBron had. The only
Mm-hmm.
thing I would say is the Warriors were definitely more hurt than the LeBron Warriors that he beat that year when the
Yeah.
Warriors won 73. But Toronto, I wouldn't say was ever as talented as LeBron in that Cleveland team or LeBron
No.
with that Heat team.
No.
Like Kawhi had to carry them through
Mm-hmm.
that entire playoff into that NBA championship. I think that's his greatness is really where he can. I think it is a conversation now. I don't think it was a conversation in the past, but to me,
Mm-hmm.
Kawhi and LeBron are the conversation.
Yeah.
And and this season is really going to show you who really is the best basketball player on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of
Oh yeah.
like what we keep saying is, can you really call yourself the best if LeBron is playing? Like that's
Yeah.
the hard thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the battle for LA this year is going to be interesting.
Right.
It's going to tell a lot, and it's going to decide who's going to win the NBA championship because I think the future NBA champion is in LA. We just don't know which one it's going to be.
It's true.
And so, battle for LA is going to be interesting.
Well, and for a time there, I thought the East was finally getting some power back, but now the West is overloaded. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy overloaded. Until Kevin Durant comes back with Brooklyn next year, but still the East is
Mm,
nowhere near what the
no.
gauntlet of the West is. It's
No.
crazy the amount of talent that's in the West.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
yeah,
crazy.
any last thoughts?
Nah.
We pretty much covered that. So,
Yeah.
One thing I'm really interested that we're looking through, and a lot of people have been talking about. Um, what There's a lot of things that is amazing with college football, and
Yes.
as you know, I'm much more into watching some college football than I am the NFL. So there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
value and a lot of things that I prefer to watch college football. Now, outside of the games, there's some things that you could leave up to some things that we're looking at that is kind of what you're saying. What is wrong? What's the right perspective you should have on some things happening? And so, just because of time, one of the things before we get to some other points is let's talk about what we're seeing with just the paying the players.
Oh man.
We got California passed a law basically saying players could get paid with their likeness. They would have free agents. They
Mm-hmm.
could sign deals.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm gonna let you kick us off with this conversation, Jamie.
I'm like 50-50 on this right now because I understand that some of these players are from lower income families and they're not making any money. And I heard Tyron Matthew talking about this, that he didn't really care. And he even said, now if I was making money when I was playing at LSU, it would have made my situation worse because he had people that would have just wanted, and he would have been taken advantage of. Because at that age, if you're making as much money as what some of these players think they're owed, you're not going to know what to do with that. That's why the NFL has financial agencies that help their rookies now money manage. And so, but I do think the players should get something, because it's, you see shirts like, and he even said, my friend was making shirts with me on them and I wasn't getting any money out of that. So their likeness is being used. Their jersey, with their jersey number, may not have their last name on it, but it's being bought and used. And the NCAA is just taking all this money. And now a lot of programs are able to build beautiful athletic programs and locker rooms and stuff like this from this money from their players. But it's hard for me. Like I said, I'm 50-50. I think they need to get something, but at the same time, you're going to school for your education. And that's what needs to be the focus. You're playing this game, but you're going for your education. And it's just hard, to just which side I want to be on, because I understand, but at the same time, I'm just like, it's you're going to school, and it's hard for me to decide yet which side I really want to be on about it.
Yeah, this is where I stand on it. So number one, there is value to going to college, to playing in college athletics. That's
Mm-hmm.
plain and simple for each person on a volleyball team, on a football team, on a basketball team. There is value to play
Mm-hmm.
Division 1 sports because after you go to college and you have this on your resume that you were so and so, even if you were left tackle on the football team, you're going to get
Mm-hmm.
hired. You're going to be looked at
Yeah.
differently because I saw this dude play in the stadium. I want to give this guy a chance. There's value in that. Number two, there's value in the scholarship that you do receive.
Mm-hmm.
There's, a lot of people don't know that these players get a stipend. A lot of them do, and so usually that's 11, usually like $1,100 a month.
Yeah.
But when you consider some of these top programs, especially Division 1 programs, where honestly this whole likeness and this whole free agency, this is the only place it'll occur, is
Mm-hmm.
on the Division 1 level. But
Mm-hmm.
but on this Division 1 player, I mean, you're getting fed, you're getting housed, you're getting all your needs met for the time that you're being there. Health insurance,
Mm-hmm.
All these different things are already covered at the Division 1 level. The problem, what I see with the California law, and that's the thing, the Pac-12 commissioner, other school officials within California itself has already come out and said this is a terrible idea. I mean,
Yeah.
that should tell you there's 4 teams in the Pac-12 that play in California. And
Mm-hmm.
what may end up happening, I really do feel, and nobody's really talking about this, is the NCAA, there's an unfair advantage to what's going to be happening in California sports. And so,
Yeah.
what you may start seeing if more states go in this direction, you're going to see state leagues. You're not going to have national leagues.
Yeah.
You're going to have the League of California. But then, are you going to get that same money? Are you going to have that same reputation if you aren't playing on the national level? So, I mean,
Yeah.
this whole idea, because it is amateur sports, because you're just not just talking about football. You have to
Mm-hmm.
consider every sport that you're participating in.
Yeah.
And so the offensive linemen who make that quarterback successful, the running
Mm-hmm.
backs, are all based on a team. Team play, that's
Mm-hmm.
what football is. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but you're going to have only individuals receiving the work of someone else, you know?
Yeah.
In most cases, the only thing where, everybody would come back to is be like, well, it's still your label, it's still your brand, it's still you that
Yeah.
these schools are receiving the money.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, you can't regulate it, and it can never. I don't know. One thing I would love to see these schools doing is take this extra funding of whatever, and honestly, I would be in favor even if it. I don't know, and it may look like these coaches can't take these ridiculous amounts of deals, that colleges offer them to coach.
Yeah.
If right now they fire the head coach from Tennessee, they have to pay him $14 million. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, these are some ridiculous contracts that these coaches are getting. Now, some of them, I mean, Nick Saban is well worth the money that you pay
Yeah.
a Nick Saban on your team. It's well worth to pay Dabo because he's going to make millions and millions more for your school.
Yeah.
You know, I would be more in favor of more scholarships being offered to other students, more funding into researches at different campuses, and they
Mm-hmm.
probably already do some of this, but a lot of these schools could invest right back into other students that are attending school and offering more opportunity for people like you and me that could attend in Alabama on maybe based on an interview or not for me not based on my ACT score, but is there
Yeah.
more opportunities out there for people to attend a more prestigious university based on some of this money that's being made? But
Yeah.
it's just it to me, if it does happen and it continues to go down this road, you're just gonna have state leagues because
Yeah.
that's the only way that you can really to me that's the only way that you can keep competition fair.
Yeah, because what is this going to do to smaller schools? Like, once more, because this is going to, more states are going to start doing this. I could see Florida start doing it next. But what is this going to do to smaller schools that cannot pay their players the same as a Alabama, as a USC, as a Miami, as a Florida State? What is this going to do to smaller programs? It's going to kill them because they're not going to be able to pay what Miami can pay. There's
Right.
no way. And
Yeah,
so,
and you're not going to see these teams like New Mexico State going to play Alabama and get a
yeah,
couple $1 million for doing it, which keeps your program running.
yeah. I think it could really, it's like, I get it. Because some of these players are never going to go pro. And they would like a little bit of money, you know, for playing and to, start their life after football. I get that. But at the same time, you're going to school, and if you're on scholarship, you're already taken care of. And so I just worry what this is going to do to the NCAA. What's it going to do to Division II schools? I don't know. I just don't see it ending very well for anybody.
Yeah. And I just go back to I think there's a ton of value being a college athlete,
Mm-hmm.
besides being paid financially, and that's where
Yeah.
I kind of look at it. I agree with the stipend. I think the stipend is a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's only $1,100, that's if everything else being covered. I mean, that'll cover,
Yeah.
if your family wants to come and live where you play. I mean, that'll usually
Mm-hmm.
cover rent for a decent apartment in most places,
Yeah.
especially if your family's. And so a lot of people don't realize that there are these stipends being offered.
Yeah.
And something that I feel is always left out of the conversation, that there is even though it's nothing to compare to what your likeness deserves, but it's still on top of everything else. It's, to me, just to keep the competition fair. I don't see offering players money. I think that's where I kind of
Yeah.
stand on it.
Okay.
Yeah. So to move on, and so we'll be talking a little bit more. We had some other points that we wanted to get to, but I knew that we were going to talk about this issue because it's been talked a lot these last couple of weeks,
Mm-hmm.
just with the new law. But there's other things that we need to talk about college football. Um,
Yes.
but time now for Team Pip or Team Bull, and so um, we're gonna do so. What I think we're gonna do, Jamie, is we're just going to do this. Um, I'll say my number five. Talk about my number five. You say your number five. We'll discuss it, and then just keep going down the list. All right.
Sounds good.
All right. So these are the top five wide receivers in NFL history. And so what I did when I was looking at it, I do have some biases. I do have more biases of people who I watched play.
Mm-hmm.
My big thing is when you see the highlights, go back and watch the tape. Did this player take over a game? Stats are big into it, and a little bit is you do have to take an effect the amount of championships or Super Bowls that a player has won. A tad
Mm-hmm.
bit. I want to say that's like the biggest overarching thing. My biggest
Mm-hmm.
my biggest thing when I look at these wide receivers, and when we keep doing this as a whole, is does this player take over games when you see him play? And so with that, my number five pick was a huge struggle for me because I definitely considered Megatron and Marvin Harrison. But there's one guy besides that who I really love at number five, and I just couldn't keep. I kept looking at him like, man, this is a weird pick, but I love this guy. I loved watching what I saw, his stats. But I'm gonna go number five, Reggie Wayne of the Colts. You see, to me when you
Miami
look,
Hurricane.
Miami Hurricanes, right? What I loved about Reggie was, to me, when you look at these old time or back in the '90s and '80s, it was big, tough, kind of slower wide receivers that were decent at catching, but really it was kind of they were looking at these run afters. Reggie, the absolutely amazing route running that he had amazing hands.
Mm-hmm.
You could see him slowly progress over Marvin Harrison. It was, I remember that transition starting to happen with Reggie. But this guy, literally, you can go back and watch the highlights. Like I said, watch the tape. Watch the tape, man.
Mm-hmm.
Tell you, I know that
Mm-hmm.
everybody's gonna give me a hard time on this Reggie Wayne pick, but you go back and you watch the tape, going through double teams. Whenever he do his post routes, I mean, he was there. I mean, even with these bad, because he didn't always have Peyton.
Mm-mm.
He had, he went through the Andrew Luck. I forget the three quarterbacks that they had after Peyton or while he was getting hurt. Reggie
Mm-hmm.
was still putting up his numbers. At the end of his career, he ended up 10th in all-time receiving yards with 14,345, 10th in all-time receptions with 1,070, and he had one Super Bowl win. One of two guys on my list that actually had Super Bowl wins. Let's put that in perspective. So really, yeah, I had to go with Reggie, man. Where'd you go? Where'd you go?
All right, so for number 5, I went Hines Ward.
Oh!
All right. Yeah.
I did not see.
I was looking, when I was picking my list, I was looking for longevity.
Can't.
Who's been in the league for a long time? And I was looking at yards, I was looking at touchdowns, but I was also looking at who their quarterbacks have been. Now, Hines, he had Big Ben, who I think is a top 5 quarterback in this league. Hines ended up with 12,000 yards, 85 touchdowns, 6 of 14 years, 6,000-yard seasons. I had to put him at number 5. It was honestly, I knew who my number 1 was, and I knew who my number 5 was, and Hines was always on that list.
Wow. Now I would say I would argue with you on that a little bit, but I'm loving it. Hines is my man. I like it. No, I mean, and one other thing that I loved about Hines Ward, you hit that dude and he comes up with the biggest smile, man.
Yep.
You remember that Hines smile, the trademark smile, Hines Ward? That's what I love about him, man.
Yep.
And the one who made blocking fun for wide receivers, like made it a thing that people looked at, was Hines Ward blocking, breaking jaws.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I'm feeling Hines Ward. How you feeling on my Reggie pick? What'd you think about that?
I like it, man. I think that's a good number 5 because I remember watching Reggie Wayne at Miami. You know, that's my college team. And so he was always that one wide receiver that I was just like, if the Chiefs could get him, we would be okay. At that time, I was like, Dwayne Bowe and Reggie Wayne, man, that Matt Castle, whew. But I love Reggie Wayne. Love Reggie Wayne.
Yeah. All right, so at number 4, I don't ever agree with his antics. I don't really necessarily. I wasn't a huge fan of them, but I can't deny the greatness of number 81, Terrell Owens. Man, you look at everything that he did. You especially look at his stats. You take away all the things about taking over a game. All of that, all the teams that he played on, antics aside, always the number 1 wide receiver, always the top target. He ended up in his career 3rd all time in receiving yards with 15,934, 3rd in receiving touchdowns with 153, 8th in reception with 1,078. And he only played in one Super Bowl, Eagles versus Patriots, and he lost that one barely. But he was also, I think in that game, he was also like playing on a broken ankle in that game and still making huge
broken
plays.
leg or ankle or something. Something was broken, and he was still doing his thing. Yeah.
Like I said, a lot of things that he did, I despise. The prima donna, wide receiver, but going over his stats and remember, like I said, my number 1 thing is, did this player take over the game? Terrell Owens would take over games. Period.
Yeah. Yeah. So for my number 4, I had Calvin Johnson.
Okay.
Man, Megatron, when he was playing, like he took over games. He only was in the league for 9 years, and for those 9 years, he was the best wide receiver in my opinion. He had 11,000 yards, 83 touchdowns. In 2012, he had 1,964 yards. I mean, he was almost a 2,000-yard receiver, and that is insane. 7,000-yard seasons. So out of 9 years in the league, 7 of those were for over 1,000 yards. It's spectacular. And I think he retired. He's one of those players. He's one of the few players that retired when he wasn't broken. and I got to take my hat off to them for that. Is he was good, and he went out on his own terms. So
Yeah, that's the thing where I struggled with sometimes with Megatron, because I think sometimes when I watch, and obviously you've got to use everything that you can to your advantage, but
hmm
sometimes, there were some times where I was into Calvin Johnson, and just sometimes where I'm just like, I don't know, and I think it had to do a lot with the only time he had a decent quarterback was with Matthew Stafford.
yeah,
And you're trying to make these stats with John Kitnas of the world,
yeah,
and all these other quarterbacks. Yeah, and like I said, at number 5, I almost put Calvin Johnson at number 5.
hmm
My big thing was, I think for me, he was a little passive at times. Like
yeah,
there was just that, where we talk about that Kobe Bryant Mamba effect. I
hmm
don't know. I never got that sense from Calvin. He always
hmm
made plays and things like that, but a lot of the times it came down to his size. But I never
yeah,
felt like he had that where he could go to this next level, but his size allowed him to take
yeah,
advantage of a lot of situations. But I still like that at number 4. I respect that.
yeah,
I respect that.
yeah.
So I'm gonna go with number 3 with the good old Randy Moss at number 3. Um, Randy, when you look at a lot of things going on with even though he was a Raider, even though he's a Patriot, um, Randy would make people look silly. There's a play
hmm
that everybody knows as he's running down the field, he's getting tackled, throws it behind him, they get the touchdown, and he's constantly making these one-handed grabs.
hmm
I could say the same thing about Randy taking off plays. That's probably his biggest fault, and maybe
Yeah.
why a lot of people don't put him as high, because the
hmm
dude did take plays off,
hmm
and 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 it was kind of all about me kind of mentality.
Yeah.
But like I said, let's look at the stats and look at the tape at the times where he decided he wanted to play. He with his speed, there was nobody like Randy Moss when he came on the scene.
hmm
Like I said, changed the prototype of what a wide receiver should look like, and the speed and everything that he played with. He was
hmm
second in receiving touchdowns all time with 156, fourth in receiving yards with 15,292, 15th all time in receptions with 982. So that's where I go back to taking those plays off, because I look at that 982 and I think that's a telling number based
hmm
on Randy Moss's 1,070, or you look at Reggie Wayne's receptions. So, and that's where he sinks. I mean, his greatness does sink because of we all saw it, him taking off these plays.
Yeah.
And he lost in 2 Super Bowls, so he never won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But I have number 3, Randy Moss.
All right. For number 3, for me, my Raider fans, they're gonna be surprised that I even have this dude on my list, but I'm gonna go Tim Brown.
Ooh.
17 years in the league, 14,934 yards, 100 touchdowns, 9 1,000-yard seasons, and he went into the Hall of Fame in 2015. The dude, longevity. Like I said, I was looking for wide receivers that have longevity. And 17 years. He played for the Raiders. He played for San Francisco. And he just, wherever he went, he just played. And I can't say enough about him. Raider fans for years were wanting this dude in the Hall of Fame, and he finally got in 2015. And I was pretty happy for him because, I think he definitely deserved it.
Yeah,
So I got him at number 3.
yeah, I think I was hearing Tim Brown, Ray Lewis referred to. I think it was him, just talking about some plays that Tim Brown made.
hmm Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so that's a guy I got to go back and look at look at some Tim
hmm
Brown plays. But
Yes.
and that's where I go back to that whole thing. It's like one of my biggest biases. I want to actually see with my own eyes. This
Mm-hmm.
whole when they played. Because there's a lot of guys that you could based on numbers, longevity, kind of that we're looking at that played and make a great argument. But like I
Mm-hmm.
said, part of my thing is just looking at these guys while they played.
Yeah. Yeah.
So moving on to number two. At number two, me and you both, we may have it flip flopped how we see it, but I know
Uh-huh.
this guy appears on both of our lists. I know this guy because I know that we both love this guy, love everything that he's about, and that's our man, Larry Fitzgerald.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about a guy that has basically played his whole career with his best. And Kurt Warner is great, but you got an
Hall of Famer.
old fragile Kurt Warner. You have
Mm-hmm.
all these. I'm not a huge fan of Carson Palmer, but you look at all these Drew Stanton. You keep
Mm-hmm.
looking back and back. The guy from USC, what's
Matt
his name?
Leinart.
Matt Leinart. You
Mm-hmm.
look at these quarterbacks and you look at the stats that Larry has. If
Mm-hmm.
Larry Fitzgerald played with a Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, there is
Mm-hmm.
no question, there is no doubt that he's the
Mm-hmm.
greatest wide receiver of all time, let alone may be considered the greatest player of all time.
Yeah.
Because listen to these stats that Larry Fitzgerald has been able to put up already, and he's not done yet. He is
Mm-hmm.
already sixth all time in receiving touchdowns with 118, second all time in receiving yards with 16,637. He is second all time in receptions in 1,332 and lost in one Super Bowl by my Steelers. So
Uh-huh.
that's okay. um, so we got 2 minutes left, man. 2 minutes left.
2 minutes left. All right. My number two is the GOAT, Jerry Rice. Man,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. 20 years. 20 years in the league. 22,895 yards. Okay? 197 touchdowns. 14 1,000-yard seasons. Hall of Famer in 2010. And he won, all those Super Bowls with San Fran. Now, he bounced...
1-3. Yep.
Yeah.
1-3.
He bounced around towards the end of his career. He went to Oakland. He went to Denver, and I think one season in Seattle. And he bounced around after that. But man, he is the GOAT. He's when you look at wide receivers, he's up there. And you just go back and watch his highlights, and he had some great quarterbacks throwing him the ball. He had Montana, he had Young. You have two Hall of Fame quarterbacks throwing you the ball. You're gonna do well for yourself.
Yeah.
But
And in an
man.
era where the 49ers were changing the game, they were kind of the first
yeah,
to introduce this
Mhm.
West Coast offense. So he's a beneficiary of that for sure.
hmm oh yeah. But yeah, man. Who's your number one?
That's what I was saying. I think we flip flopped this.
We
Yeah,
did.
yeah, my number one is Jerry Rice.
Mhm.
And you just right now, the biggest tell is that receiving yard mark, that 22,895. That's what's going to be hard for Larry to catch up, and even that touchdown mark with 197 touchdowns. Regardless of who's throwing to you, route, whatever, he could be considered the greatest NFL player of all time. Up there with the Tom Brady. And I think a lot of people even put him above even Joe Montana. You just, like you said, taking over, the whole thing about taking over a game, the whole thing of changing the position of what you're wanting talent-wise to look at. Route running, hands, speed. Jerry Rice had it all.
Oh yeah.
He had
Yep.
he had he started what we see at wide receivers now. Because talent wise, if you take some of these wide receivers and put it back them and in their era, like some of these wide receivers, I think talent wise are more talented, but Jerry was the first. He was the first one to recognize what this position needed to look like. And so that's why, like I said, you can't. I don't think you could ever knock him off number one. But I know who you have at number one, I think.
So who's your number one? Fitzgerald.
That's right.
Larry Fitzgerald, man. 16 years and counting.
Yeah.
16,637 yards and counting. 118 touchdowns and counting. He's had 9,000-yard seasons, 6,000-yard seasons since 2011. That's my dude. Like, number one. I love Jerry Rice, but Larry Fitzgerald, you look at who's thrown him the ball. He's stayed with the Cardinals when most people would leave. Right. He stayed. That's my dude. Best player in the NFL. Hands down. Future Hall of Famer. He'll never win a Super Bowl, but future Hall of Famer.
Oh,
that's Larry. What I got.
Yeah, no, I respect that. I think in my heart, I wanted to go Larry as number one, but mainly just because we both really like him as a person. Like he's just like based on everything you can tell about Larry, he's just genuinely a good person. Like, and that's a big thing in my book. I mean, the only thing I think that I'm thinking on your list that I'm kind of like looking at maybe not is the Tim Brown and Megatron. Did you see where are you looking at on my list?
I think your list is pretty solid. Reggie Wayne can be switched out. When it comes to top five, like I wouldn't put him in my top five, but
yeah,
I would he would be in like definitely the top 10. Right. I could make an argument for number 6, number 7 for Reggie, but I think there was better wide receivers than him, but not by much. And so, I liked your list, though.
So, just to reiterate, I had Reggie Wayne at 5, I had Terrell Owens at 4, Randy Moss at 3, Larry Fitzgerald at 2, and Jerry Rice at 1. You want to name yours off one more time?
Hines Ward at 5, Calvin Johnson at 4, Tim Brown at 3, Jerry Rice at 2, and number 1, Larry Fitzgerald.
All right, so during this week, we're going to put up polls and all these opinions. We want you guys to go on Facebook, Instagram, once we get Instagram up and going, and Twitter. Tell us who you're thinking, Team Pip or Team Bull. Let us know. Shout out to us what you guys are thinking, because obviously I win. But Jamie, episode 1. Episode 1 is in the books. We're learning. We're going to keep trying to get you better product each and every week.
Yes.
We're learning through it. Next time we won't be as long. Next time we'll really keep it concise in time. But
we'll try.
We'll try. But we love sports and we love talking about it. So you never know.
Yes.
So, Jamie, any final thoughts?
Man, just keep listening. Give us some input. Stuff you guys want us to talk about, we'll talk about it. We're gonna give you guys a better product every week. And thank you for those that are listening to us. We really appreciate the love and the support.
Yeah, and really, when you guys are, we're two best friends just talking about sports. We keep it light, and and that's what we love. And so. The show is just our time and just things that we like to talk about and just love to do, and so that's what the Pipkin and Turnbull show is all about. And so if you just want to have some fun listening to us, that's great. So we hope you keep tuning in, like Jamie said. Yes. We will see you next week. We'll post the times and let you know when that will happen. Everybody have a great night.
Love you.